Hey, hello again. Here's a summary. Today is May 20th, 18th, 19th, I don't know, something like that. Um, since my last video, I've moved. Um, I've been introduced to new resources of study, particularly the writings of Carlos Castaneda, which I don't hold in any endeavor other than him recounting the words of Don Juan. In one sense, I've convinced myself, I don't care how crazy people say this, that Don Juan's teachings to Carlos Castaneda were not for Carlos Castaneda. It was that Don Juan recognized that Carlos Castaneda was an avenue to the student that he did not have immediate access to, but that was the path. He recognized the ego in Carlos Castaneda would exploit everything that he was given towards nefarious ends, but in his exploitation of those things, he would put them, he would become a medium, a media, median, um, a neutral ground in New Orleans, so to speak, um, that connected one road to the other, that being Don Juan's road to his true student's road, if I may, and I would like to claim to be his true student. So, and then in the process, my eviction went through, and I moved out, and I waited till the very last day. I had everything out. Did miss the sheriff. I wanted to catch the sheriff, um, but since then, the place that I moved into, there were two rooms available. Of the two rooms, when I the day I looked at it, I had one day to make a decision. The next day, I called and I said, "Hey, I made a decision. I want this room." And the guy said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Somebody picked it." And I was like, "Are you serious? Somebody got it that quick?" So like, all right, I'll take the other room. And now I'm in the other room. But the other room's nice. I have a big sliding glass door, and the way the temperature turns out, I actually enjoy it more. And I got a chance to talk to the guy in the other room, and it's a very interesting thing. In my immersement in Don Juan, which was over 30 hours in 3 days of going through audio files on YouTube University. I still have to thank Google for some reason. That sounds crazy. But either way, I've committed to that path, um, that sense of knowledge in one right. And in the process of chit-chatting, I had a cable box in my room. I didn't need it. My roommate didn't have one, so I was like, "Here, take this one. I don't care." And so he took it. In the process of talking, I told him, "Yeah, I just got into this stuff. I'm reading this, and interesting enough." Now I don't know how you guys see this, but I asked him, "Also, did you grow up around here?" He's like, "Nah." So where'd you grow up? He's at Arizona. So it turns out he's actually a Yaqui Indian. So there's a lot more behind this behind that story. Another thing that I took to doing is I'm by the Chatsworth Hills, which is also by Box Canyon, which is the site of the first nuclear melt reactor meltdown ever in the history of humanity, and the first technically nuclear accident, because the bombs intentionally blown up by a few individuals are not considered an accident by the species, because the species as a whole are a bunch of drone idiots. But other than that fact, the first real accident was in 1959, and it was a nuclear meltdown at Box Canyon. Da, 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 da. We know the whole story. Kept under wraps from the United States government, which is a criminal activity that resulted in the deaths of thousands of Americans, in collusion with Rocketdyne Corporation, which still operates until they were caught. And their idea of a cleanup was they took the top 6 inches of soil off of the area and called it a wrap. But luckily for us, I must say, in a karmic way, might sound disgusting, but hey, this is reality. In the 1980s, when minority communities like black communities and Hispanic communities were seeing record levels of massive amount of, in one sense, if this wasn't America, and you looked at a minority groups killing themselves in other countries at the rate that they were being killed at in the 1980s, that would be probably legally defined as a civil war, like particularly in the black community, for one example, because the death rate across from New Orleans to Chicago to South Central LA to parts of New York, it was blood, Crips, and it didn't wasn't all that, but it was in one sense it was a black civil war. But anyways, in the 1980s, while that was happening, one of the richest cities in the country, not the richest, but one of the richest communities, it's called the Gora Hills, and it's basically the previous Calabasas, before Calabasas was really established, had the highest teen suicide rate. So, on an interesting flip side to this, Simi Valley, which is the site of the first nuclear reactor meltdown, and which by definition is still a nuclear disaster site, according to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, if it were to acknowledge it, which means that it should be evacuated 50 miles because there was no way to measure the amount of radiation. The fitting and most karmic thing is that that is the highest density population, that city is the highest density of cops living there. So, things have a way of, if karma's real, karma is a bitch when you are. So, so I've been going up into these mountains. They're beautiful shattered rocks, and they're these big boulders, and you're jumping around. And it's been such an amazing experience because I've already noticed that, hey, they're all sand. They're compressed sand. And I realized that with this whole thing about global warming and that the sea level's rising 12 feet, and they're saying 100 years. Again, they were saying that the ice caps were going to melt in hundreds of years, and then they got down to 50, and they got down to 20, and then it got down to 4, and now they're like, oh my gosh, they're probably not going to be there by the next year. So this 12 feet rising in 100 years is going to do the same process because scientists just don't have the balls, the capacity, or the psychological or spiritual, for that matter, gumption to actually be upright and forward, or to see the truth, because it's terrifying for them too. It is a terrifying fact. 12 feet rise, and that's probably going to go up as fast as the time goes down. Um, yes, because that's the other thing too. The same thing that they forgot to do with the with the northern ice caps is the same thing that's happening. That melting at such an accelerated rate now that what's melting is releasing even more uh, chemical gases, particles that accelerate the process even further. So it's a compound. After that, there's some kind of rule, mathematical thing of growth. I forgot what it is. Like if something grows at 7% for 7 years, it doubles in 7 years. I forgot that. Perpetual growth, some crap like that. I don't know. I'm not an expert. But anyways, so in the process of doing that, I realized, looking at all these beautiful rocks, oh my gosh, these are all sand. This is all compressed sand. My grandfather was an engineer, and one of the few, he helped build the freeways of Los Angeles. He actually designed the green signs that are now the most popular signs. And they stole his idea after he had presented the idea, and they had finally said no, and then they transferred him. He's a Mexican, so that's the way it works for us in this country. They're thieves. They never stop being thieves. They're thieves on an individual level. It just happens to be on a grand scale too. So he created these signs, and then they said, no, 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 we don't need those. That's not a good idea, because originally they weren't reflective and they weren't green. And after they transferred him out of the department, then they started making the signs. But you know what? That's still a contribution. The other thing too is my grandfather was part of their 405, and he stole rocks. He liked rocks, so he collected rocks. One of the rocks that he stole, he took to geologists at UCLA because it was an amazing rock, and the geologist said, "Wow, this is interesting. This is a rock that goes for a fault." He's like, "Where'd you get it from?" He's like, "Well, we're building the 405." He's like, "What the heck are you talking about? There's no fault right there." So my grandfather had been telling me since I was a little kid that there was a fault under the 405. And just like 8 months ago, there was an earthquake, the first earthquake recorded, and the fault was admitted to be underneath the 405. So, this is the way life goes. So, but on my little journey, I realized that these Chatsworth Hills, these rocks are all sand, and this was at one point the coastal line. And in the process, my grandfather taught me compression. When you're building something, you want to make sure the ground is solid. And it's just like when you go to the beach and you walk on the wet sand, and when you put your foot down and it dries around it. Well, looking at these hills, I've seen footprints, brontosaurus footprints. I've seen what I'm equate to camel footprints. Um, I know no human type footprints, but a variety of different footprints that you can see a compaction in the brontosaurus. What I would consider the brontosaurus type animal is clear because it's round, and where it's red right there, because of the compaction effect of them walking. And there's actually three. They're always come in sets of three, and you can see the pattern. But anyways, the valley doesn't equate that to any kind of special thing. Probably because of the influence of fascism from the primary three religions that don't want to accept that kind of stuff. But it's a treasure trove of beautiful information, and so safe. Birds nest on the ground there, so that proof that there's no snakes. You might see coyotes. It's such an amazing place, and so much to learn right there. And it's so amazing to realize that that's sand. All those rocks are sand. That was a coastline at one time. So that was a beautiful thing. Um, I renounced bartending. In the end, water, man. The spirit industry and the beer industry, they're the number one wasters of water, and right now that's the number one. They have the biggest. They hoard the most drinkable, the last reserves of drinkable water on the planet, and they use it in a way that is horrible. And there's kids, there's millions of kids and women and starving people, and these companies, they have the right to make their money in their mind. And I was serving people, and I'm sorry, I was doing fine. I was paying my rent in 2 days in some cases, and I have to walk away. What I'm gonna do next? hmm But it's pretty disgusting, and I have to face. You have to face what you do. This is the role you play. Um, so I'm on a nice little journey. When I was hiking, I made a determination that I'm gonna do a peyote trip. And I've been doing this hiking because it's a preparatory thing. It's Mescalito is who I'm looking to meet. And in the process, at one point, I was walking, stepping, and I slipped. And in the process, and I don't slip too often, to be honest with you, which is a weird thing. As I slipped and I went down, I looked up. It's kind of like I did this kind of gesture, looking up and slipping at the same time. And in a flash, I saw a black billy goat standing on one of the rocks, the boulders right in front of me. And when I looked back up, it was gone. And I no, it's a vision. It's not a. This is I interpret it as a vision. And my first reaction was, oh man, a billy goat? That's it? Because it was small, little legs, little horn, little gray going right here. And I was like, little gray at the hooves. I was like, oh man, a billy goat? Thinking this is my spiritual animal, a billy goat. I couldn't get a ram or maybe like a cougar. And in the echo of the back of my head, my own self-conscious, which was me talking to myself, but echoing the words of what I consider my teacher, I really heard the words of Don Juan saying, would you prefer him to be something else? And I recognized, I understood that question, and I know. So my creature, my mescalito, has come to me in the form of the black billy goat. And there's simple psychological, there's simplistic psychological stuff that is the tip of the iceberg on the spiritual. And just to give you the summary, whatever that creature is always you. It's not something else. So the question, do you want it to be something else, is do you want to be somebody else? And if the answer to that is yes, you've already failed. Because only the dead want to be something else. And that's alive. So here I am. I'm playing the flute, got my violin. I play the guitar, and I'm still doing great. I'm exercising out, and I'm studying Bruce Lee's teachings as well, along with probability statistics and more legal matters that I intend to have a good time on July 21st with one of what I would like to be considered a true uh, demonstration of me as a disciple and ardent son of Henry David Thoreau. If not Henry David Thoreau, ooh, maybe I was his teacher. I was whatever Henry David Thoreau had in him. I was not him, but whatever he had in him, whispering to do what he did, it was me. So, peace out.